Hi there. So you're new to CC Foundations and you want to know, what is this curriculum all about? What are you holding? You've ordered what you need to order and now you want to know, what is this? Okay, I'm going to remind you a bunch of times in this video that these are the only things that are required to do Foundations. The Foundations Guide and a tin whistle. I recommend getting yourself a tin whistle as well so that you can participate during class. It's a really great thing. So, tin whistle, Foundations Guide. So, what is the Foundations curriculum? What does it contain? The Foundations curriculum is divided into 3 cycles. That is 3 separate bodies of information that do not build on each other. So you can start Foundations in any cycle. All over the world, everyone doing CC Foundations is doing the same cycle. So this year, in fall of 2022, we are doing cycle 2. If you turn the book sideways, you can see the gray areas split into 3 parts. That's the 3 cycles. So that's the 3 bodies of information that are separate, and we do 1 cycle per school year. So this year we're on cycle 2. So why don't we take a look at the different cycles? So I actually have 2 Foundations guides. Don't ask me why. This is the one that I use the most, and I have put tabs all in it. So you can see the colors for each of the cycles very easily here. So let's go to cycle 2, since that's the cycle that we're on right now. Cycle 2 starts on page 131, and there is a lovely table of contents that tells you what is in cycle 2. So let's turn to the next page. You have a lovely graphic of what they're going to be learning in cycle 2. And then you have lots more details on the next page of what they're going to be learning in each subject in all 24 weeks. Turn the page again and you will see week 1 of the memory work. So this is the information that your tutors are going to be presenting to your students on Community Day. So they will be presenting it for the first time for your students. So you don't pre-teach this information, your tutor introduces it to them, and then you spend the rest of the days until the next Community Day reviewing this information. Also, with this information, you're not teaching the concepts. So for instance, week 1 is the parts of speech in English. They're learning noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, conjunction, interjection, preposition, adjective. So this is written here, but that's not an assignment for you to go home and teach your 6-year-olds what all the parts of speech are. It's not. You really, truly are just going home and helping them to memorize this list of words, so that when they start essentials at age 9 and start to really encounter these in sentences with meaning, they'll say, aha, I am already familiar with those things because I've heard that list. I promise it's going to be life-changing that these lists and these groups of words are in their heads. You will review these words at home. You're not teaching the concepts. But as the kids get older, they might be interested in different pieces of information, especially and most frequently science or history. And so you might choose to make a documentary about or watch a documentary about some of those things, or get some library books to learn more. And that's totally fine and wonderful and expected and natural. But especially if you're brand new to CC, just remember that what you're doing is just trying to get kids to memorize these exact words, not teaching the concepts. Let's turn to page 158. That's the first page that we call proof pages. This is where one entire spread is one subject. So this is all of the math. You turn the page and you see all of the Latin. Turn the page, so on and so forth, all 7 subjects where they're individually on one spread. These are really, really helpful for use in review time, and especially because you're going to be taking your Foundations Guide to Community Day to class. You can use these pages during review time to help out your tutors, which is a wonderful thing. So I love those pages. We use those a lot at my house. Continuing on, you will find maps, the maps that we are using for this cycle, which are Europe and the world. So we have a colored labeled map and a black line master map. Colored and labeled, black line master. Continuing to turn, we come to the scripture passage that we will focus on during opening. Now, not every single community does this, and some do it slightly differently, but this is a scripture passage that CC recommends that we work to memorize, and so we do. So for cycle 2, it's Genesis 1 through 27 in the King James Version, and it is here for you. Just as a side note, if you're interested in learning this with your family but you don't want to use King James Version, that is totally fine. On this page here is a note about presentations. It just kind of helps you understand the heart behind presentations and why we do it and what you can be focused on with your kids doing presentations. And then turning the page, we come to our fine arts section. So each of the 4 quarters of foundations is focused on a different fine arts. The first one is focused on drawing, and it is repeated every cycle, the drawing quarter. So they do not repeat the lesson plans. Rather, they direct you to pages 80 through 86 in here, where there are detailed lesson plans for each week of drawing. Same goes for music, which is tin whistle. So remember, it's not, the focus of tin whistle is not to teach kids how to play an instrument. The focus of tin whistle is to teach kids music theory, which is related to math and just helps us see the order that God set up in our world. So there is a different song that we work towards in Tin Whistle each cycle. Cycle 2's is Mary Had a Little Lamb. But remember, the point of Tin Whistle is learning music theory. It's really not learning how to play an instrument. Turning the page, we have The Great Artist. This is quarter 3. This is where they will focus on a different famous artist from the time period that we're working on this cycle, and they will do a project in that style. So there's a mention of each week and what the different project is, and this uses a different book that I will show you later, which you do not need to own yourself. The tutors have these books. And then the final one is Composers and Orchestras. Again, it uses a separate book to give more information to the tutors, but it's listed here of what composers and what pieces that we will hear from them. So that is the composers and orchestra part. And then we get to science. Science begins on page 188. You will see this list of all the different science projects and experiments that we're going to do this year. All the ones, so it turns out to be quarter 1 and quarter 3 every single year. There's a little asterisk next to the project, and that is trying to tell you, it says right here, if you read this part, those use experiments found in this book. You do not need to own this book. This is for tutors to own. It's wonderful for parents to own it. If you decide you would like to get it, if you love doing science experiments at home, this is a really wonderful science book that you could do. And as you see here, it says like on week 1, number 2 shaded. If you really enjoyed that, you could go and check out numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6, something around number 2, and do those at home to kind of reinforce some similar ideas. So it is a great idea to own it at home. It's not something you have to do. That would be bonus. That would be extra. Quarters 2 and 4 are experiments or projects that CC asks us to do, and so those are listed on the following pages, and those are going to look a little different from community to community just based on the makeup of the kids, how old they are, the space there is to use, what the director chooses to do with the funds. So, but you can flip and see what projects you guys will be doing. So a note on the fine arts section and the hands-on science section of your foundations guide. Those are not necessarily for you to do anything with at home. Those are really informational for the tutors as they prepare to lead the class on Community Day. It's for directors as they plan. And it's certainly for parents if they want to see what is going to be taught because maybe they want to add to it at home, or they miss a week and they want to try and duplicate something at home. Those are all good reasons why a regular parent might look at those pages. But I want you to know, as a first year especially, that's not anything you need to look at. So kind of set those aside and think of those as things that you can start paying more attention to later, and especially when you become a tutor someday, which I hope that you will. So that was like all of cycle 2. So cycle 1 and cycle 3 are set up, laid out exactly the same way within this book. So again, this book contains all 3 cycles, and they don't build on each other. And so these are the only required items to do the foundations curriculum. But there is one more item that CC offers that I highly recommend to every family, first year or not, and that is the audio. So you can get these as CDs. I think they're $10 from the CC bookstore, or you can get them on iTunes. These are really wonderful because CC has spoken or sung all of the memory work on these CDs. They are listed by week, where you could listen to like all of week's 1 memory work, and they're also listed by subject, where you could listen to the entire year's worth of Latin all at once. And then there's also the extra songs like the timeline song, the orchestra song, some different extra add-ons. So I highly, highly, highly recommend these. So if you're a first year, this is what you should get. These 3 things, okay? Now I'm going to show you some of the extras that you really do not need as a first year, but I want you to know that they're available. One is the CC flashcards. These are little tiny flashcards where each subject is a different color. I have mine in a little box right now. Some of them I have ringed because they're hole punch, so you can divide them and organize them however you want, whatever works for you. But they're really great for taking out of the house if you want to review memory work while you're out of the house. You could also make lots of different kinds of games with them, like Jeopardy or fishing or bingo or musical chairs. So there's lots of different games out there that use these flashcards. Another resource is the timeline card. So remember from the Foundations book that one of the 7 subjects is timeline. This timeline is like 189 events, I believe, and they learn it every single year. So they spend all year learning these 189 events, and they repeat it every single year. So obviously that's a really important thing, something that we really want kids to get ingrained into their minds is this timeline. Tutors usually own timeline cards. You will see them in class where each event has its own card. These cards are wonderful to own, but they are not cheap. They're sold in packs in 4 sections. So to get the entire year, the whole timeline, you would need to buy all 4 packs. So I'm going to show you one of them. This is just how I organized mine. They're not sold in a notebook. They're just sold as the cards. There's lots of different ways to organize timeline cards. This is just how I've done it, but I just wanted to show you the timeline cards. This is what the cards look like. I just have them in the notebook. On the back of each card is some information about the event, so that's really cool. As kids get older, that's a really great way to expound upon the memory work, is for the kids to read the timeline cards. So the timeline cards are a wonderful investment. If you decide you're going to stick around with CC for long, I would highly recommend getting them. You can find them used, and you can, of course, buy them used from CC themselves. Okay, another resource that I really love and use a lot is the Trivium table. This contains all the maps for the cycle. So this is the Cycle 2 Trivium table. So we've got our Europe map, and if we open it up, we've got our Black Line Master Europe map that's bigger, and then a list of all the locations. And then if we turn it over, we've got our world map, our Black Line Master world map, and a list of all the locations. And this whole thing is dry erase. So this is a really great way to review at home. And maybe I said a lot of tutors will use these in class to review geography in class. If you want to work on maps at home but you don't have a Trivium table, it's really simple to just photocopy the maps at home and stick them in a page protector, and kids can trace on those as well. The last thing I want to show you are books that are required for tutors. They are not required for plain old parents, but I want you to know what's being used, and you can consider getting them for yourself if you are one of those amazing parents who really likes to add a lot at home. These would be great books to add some more meat to the things that the kids are learning on Community Day. So I already showed you the science book. The other 3 books are for art. So the first quarter of art was drawing. We used this book. The tutors used different parts of this book to teach the different drawing concepts. So this is a really excellent, excellent book that I think you'd find a lot of use for, even if you don't tie it directly into CC. In the third quarter, we use this book to learn about an individual artist each week and to do a project in their style. So each of the artists that we learn about is on one of the spreads. So we get a picture of the artist, a little information about him, and then a suggestion of an activity we could do to do a project in their style. And the fourth quarter, we are learning about great composers and the orchestra, and we use classical music for dummies. So in all 3 cycles, we do 3 composers each cycle. So 9 composers, all 9 of those guys are in here. So there's information about each composer, as well as you can download some audio tracks to listen to the different compositions for each cycle. And there's a listening guide. And a listening guide means it's a list where it says, like, it's got timestamps, and it'll say, at 1 minute, listen to the trumpet, and, you know, notice the emotions that are evoked, or whatever. So you can read, you can be listening and then reading through to notice the different things happening in the song. Those listening guides are what your tutors will be using in community on those particular weeks. So this is another great resource. But again, those 4 were just for tutors. They are not necessary for parents unless you're just a real go-getter. So for the last time, these are the only 2 things that are required. This is bonus, but please get it. And then everything else, I would say wait until you're not a first year. So I love answering people's questions. If you have any questions for me, just leave a comment. Thanks.